Become an advertiser or underwriter of TV Confidential and let our brand help promote your brand. To find out more, go to televisionconfidential.com/advertise.
Hi, this is Alan Zweibel, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic point aboard this tiny ship.
Ed Robertson, along with Tony Figueroa and Donna Allen, welcoming you back to TV Confidential, a radio talk show about television that will spend this segment talking about Russell Johnson, the actor known to 3 generations as the professor on Gilligan's Island, a man that Tony described as the voice of science on the show, and in many respects the voice of reason on the show. Because if it weren't for the professor, a lot of the island's ability to function would be, but all the inventions that gave a sense of modern America to out in the middle of nowhere. None of that would have happened without the professor.
Yeah, I think what your dad did, Kimberly, for that show, I think is invaluable.
Well, I think it kept the show going. Otherwise, if you didn't have a professor on the show, there would just be a bunch of people.
They would have been dead. Let's be blunt. I mean,
a bunch of dead people.
Yeah, it would have been a bunch of dead people, which on CBS at that time, that might have been good enough to keep it going.
Yeah,
but
I'd like to be part of the pitch meeting of that. Okay, I'll have a show about dead people.
Yes.
That would.
Well, then HBO picked it up, called it 6 Feet Under. But he just was, like I said, the voice of reason, a conduit to the audience, explaining how certain things are going. He could be providing psychological or sage advice. And I remember reading that there were even science classes where they were teaching basic science with a traditional science teacher, and they were teaching the same lessons that the professor would teach on Gilligan's Island, and they had half a test group with a real science teacher, half a test group with segments from the episodes, and the ones that watched the segments from the episodes knew more, according to the tests, than the stuff taught by the regular science teacher.
Really? Well, you know more than I do.
And the reason why, Kim, is because you're able to get a science lesson in the form of a half-an-hour comedy show, which again, that's a very effective way of getting information out.
And a comedy, yet the professor's delivery was just so deadpan, almost. Am I using the right term?
Yeah, I would say he sort of took an Adam West approach to the
comedy
without necessarily trying to be Adam West, and that he was playing it straight, and because he said everything deadpan, and because he was a man of science and a reactor, I mean, that's how he brought humor to the show.
And I believe he was really consistently the straight man for the entire cast in many of the episodes.
He did get to play a few laughs.
Oh, yeah, he did.
If he's opposite Tina Louise...
Oh, yeah. Well, the dream sequences were what he loved most, because he got to be a wacky guy and play all these different crazy characters, so that was really fun for him.
By the way, before we forget, Kim, or Kimberly, is Kimberly Johnson, Russell's daughter, who is our special guest tonight, as we devote this hour of the program to Russell Johnson. Kim, thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And also here with us, before we go too far astray, is the man who pretty much spearheaded this hour, and that is our friend Bill Funt. Bill Funt, who's been busy. It's been a while since Bill has been on the program, but that's because you went back to school.
Yeah, it occurred to me that pretty much every time I've been on this show, Ed, was because someone died. First J.D. Jones, then Bob Hedges, and now Kimberly's father. Mm-hmm. But yes, in the time that I've been here, I got a master's in education. I wrote my thesis on educational television, and that's the direction I want to go in now. And briefly, y'all know my dad was Alan Funt of Candid Camera, mm-hmm. But not a lot of people know that the other connection to that in my life is that my aunt, Elaine Laren, who passed away last year, mm-hmm. was a writer-producer for Electric Company, Captain Kangaroo, and Free to Be You and Me. So that's in my blood, too. But my connection to Kim and how I became the Gilligan go-to man was... before I went to school, I was doing other kinds of DVD collection mm-hmm. productions, and I was attempting to get the 3 Gilligan's Island TV movies out as a box set. And it was because I wanted them out, basically. And so I was already friendly with Sherwood Schwartz and his family, and so I went to him and I pitched that idea, and he said, well, you're a brave young man. And boy, did I not know how true those words were. But the happy ending here is that in doing this, I got friendly with several different people in the Gilligan's inner circle. The Schwartzes, obviously. Dawn Wells and I became very friendly. Dreama Denver, Bob's widow, is a good friend now. And Kim Johnson, we've never met in person, but we've become friends on Facebook. And by the way, she's extremely funny.
Yes. No, I was telling Tony and Donna that Kim and I chatted briefly a couple of days before we broadcast. And she's very down-to-earth, very funny person.
Actually, it's funny. I saw Dawn a couple of years ago because actually Alan Hill's granddaughter does stand-up. Mm-hmm. And Dawn and I went to go see that, which was very funny. And so I saw Dawn. I said that I'd also become friendly with Kim. And she said, oh, you know what? I've been trying to call Kim's father up in Washington State. Would you please tell her to tell her dad to call me? And I thought, how did I become the Gilligan's Island answering service? How did that happen?
Well, didn't you know you're a very brave young man?
Apparently,
yes. Yes. Let's go back, Kim, to... We're talking about how... What Tony said, Gilligan is one of the most maligned shows in the history of television. Now, I know some actors pay attention to reviews, some actors ignore them. Did your father follow any of that stuff? Did he pay attention to it? Did he ignore it? Reviews, or people saying, people making fun of the show, not realizing that it's a lot smarter than it actually is.
Oh no, I don't think he paid attention to any of that. I think for him it was, it was a good job. It was a wonderful experience. Everybody was really close and happy. I think that I do recall, he has spoken before a number of times about not knowing that he and Dawn were going to be considered and the rest at the very first airing, the first season of the show. They called each other, and I remember, he was just livid. Like, he just couldn't believe that they would do that without telling them even. And then, of course, they changed it. But as far as reviews are concerned, I don't think he paid attention to any of that stuff because...
Well, your dad had a pretty long journeyman career by that point.
Yes.
So I guess he took it in stride.
Well, he did turn it down a couple of times before he said yes to doing Gilligan's. I also remember him saying something about that he was just before that, he was being considered to play Ben Casey.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can see.
Easily.
I can see that.
Yeah, he was. And I don't remember whether he turned that down or whether they just gave the part to the actor who played it. But
that said, I can't see Vince Edwards as the professor. I can't see the flip side.
I'm talking about my father playing Ben Casey and Vince Edwards getting the part. I don't really know much more about that. But, no, my father was, I don't know, he was just a very dignified man, and he didn't mess with petty things like that. And he had a series before that called Black Saddle.
Yes.
So, I think that he felt, fine as long as he was working. I mean, that's what all actors want to do.
Well, considering your father, nearly died during World War II, and when his plane was shot down, and all of that, yes, I mean, that adds a lot of perspective to stuff, especially in an industry with as many ups and downs as film and television.
Yeah, well, we had he had all of his medals mounted in this beautiful frame, which was put up at his memorial service, and that was really, really a gorgeous thing. I have his Purple Heart in a safe deposit box, and that period of time really meant a lot to him, and of course it means a lot to me because if he hadn't made it, I wouldn't be here. So.
Well, and just to show how gracious he is about it, Dawn Wells posted on her Facebook page that when she went to the funeral, that was when she learned he'd gotten a Purple Heart.
Yeah.
She didn't know that in 50 years.
Well,
she didn't know? Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm glad, because maybe a lot of people didn't know that.
Well, that speaks to, I mean, he was a member of what Tom Brokaw would call the greatest generation.
Oh, well, I mean, look what they've seen through their lifetime.
And
it's amazing.
I mean, and I always find it amazing, especially people that we associate with television comedy.
Yeah.
Just comedy.
Right.
Yeah.
Your dad, I believe Alan Hale, sir, Johnny Carson, Ed McMahon, both Navy and Marines. Ed McMahon was a fighter pilot. Don Rickles was in the Philippines. Mel Brooks was in Europe. Carl Reiner was...
These guys were...
that we laughed with.
That would have been
Don Adams.
Don Adams was in Guadalcanal.
Don Adams. Oh, we loved Don Adams. And I think they met, actually, at like some kind of affiliates convention once. But he was so funny.
You know, I got a little bit of dirt on Kim here, which is that, you know, in the last season of Gilligan, it was up against the Monkees. Well, she watched the Monkees. Did you know that?
Did not. But yeah, Bill and I have a wonderful affection for the Monkees, and
we were just talking
about that.
But, no,
he still has his Davy Jones poster on his wall.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yes.
We love the Monkees, and we love Mickey Dolenz voice. It's just, you know, one of the best voices. I just love Mickey Dolenz. And it's funny, I saw him outside of Ralph's in Studio City once, and I got so excited. I was just jumping all over the place saying, I saw Mickey Dolenz outside of Ralph's.
We are remembering Russell Johnson, the actor known to 3 generations of TV viewers as the professor on Gilligan's Island, along with Tony Figueroa, Donna Allen, Bill Funt, and Russell's daughter, Kimberly Johnson. Now, Bill was teasing you, Kimberly. Okay, you may have watched The Monkees when the show was first on, but when did you first realize, Kim, that Gilligan's Island was as popular as it was around the world? When did you first realize that?
I don't know. I really don't. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. At some point, the retro classic TV thing started happening, and you guys would probably know better than I when that started to happen.
But it was a hit in prime time when you were a kid, though. So I mean, you know,
I didn't know anything else. You know, my mother was a theater director and a screenwriter, and she also was an acting teacher for many, many years.
Kay Cousins.
And one of the best. And their friends were all actors. So I didn't really know anything else, so to me it was normal. And other people in my life have asked me that question in a way throughout my life. What was it like? And I just can't answer that, because my guess is that, you know, what was it like having your father be, you know, the grocer or the postman, or I just didn't know anything else, and to me it was normal. I'll tell you something funny though. David Brinkley, who was a newscaster, but you remember him, David Brinkley?
Yeah. NBC.
Yeah, NBC. And he looks very much like my dad's brother, my Uncle David. And my Uncle Kenny came out to be an actor as well, and then they had their friends. So I just thought that when I was a little tiny little girl, I just thought that everybody I was related to was on TV. So I thought David Brinkley was my uncle for a couple of years there. I just didn't know any different.
And Kim, as you know, I had the similar experience as you did growing up, and my answer was always the same. People said, what was it like to have a father who was famous and wealthy and on television? And I always say, I can only tell you my own experience.
Yeah.
And it's also a very different experience now, because when I was growing up, that's when it was happening, and now that I'm older and it's behind me, it's less a part of I identify with it less now. So I have the same answer to that question that you do.
But when we're talking about retro television, Gilligan's Island was on, and it was always on, even when it was no longer on network.
Right.
I mean, growing up, it was always on. If it got kicked off of one syndicated deal, you got it on the next channel. Right. As opposed to the Monkees, where I know they had like a deal in the 60s for syndication, then you didn't see it, and then all of a sudden MTV picked it up.
Right.
and it went nuts.
Well, that show is kept alive more by the records than the reruns of the show.
But there was a period where,
and
you
the
heard
tours.
about this show, but you never saw it. And I think
CBS ran it on Saturday morning for a while during the 70s.
Correct.
Yeah, and then, like I said, MTV picked it up, and then other shows would be in some vault somewhere, and somebody would throw it out because there was another channel and you need to fill stuff. But Gilligan, like I Love Lucy and certain shows, were always
there.
on. Yeah. They were. There's never been a time, at least that I know, where I couldn't find it.
Now, Gilligan's Island always holds a special place for me. There was no TV in my house on school nights. However, at 4:30, we could turn on Channel 19 in Cincinnati, Ohio. We had a half hour of television. It was Gilligan's Island. It was always Gilligan's Island. I think I can recite those episodes. And as much as I enjoyed them as a kid, I am still enjoying them as an adult. It's a part of my life, and I think a lot of people in my generation can say that.
Oh, I love what you just said. I'm wondering what the statistics are. I have heard different kinds of statistics saying that Gilligan's is got to be the most famous television show ever because it's in 23 countries.
Wow.
And I think it surpassed I Love Lucy a while back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys might know better than I, if that's true.
I wouldn't be surprised if it is because, as Tony and Donna just said, it's one of the few shows that has never been off television, and the premise is something that I can see why it plays well in other countries because it's...
And again, it goes back to it being the most maligned show because you ask certain people of the intellectual sect, they'll say, well, because Americans are stupid, that's why it was so popular. But it really was capturing this microcosm of Americana.
Right.
And if I'm remembering my history correctly, sure, the critics went after Gilligan's Island the first season. Maybe the critics didn't care for it, the public loved it, and during the second and third seasons, the critics left it alone. They didn't say anything. They let public opinion count. Public loved it and still does.
It was moving up in the ratings. It's funny, you had said, I think, Ed, you said something about television being sort of a vast wasteland back then, which is really funny to me because that's what Henry Kissinger said about Russia.
Now, Kim, you know who said that, right? And how his name lent itself to the Gilligan creation, don't you?
No.
It was Newton Minow. What was he?
He was the chairman of the FCC in 1960.
And so when Sherwood wrote the show, he called the boat the SS Minnow, not after a fish, but after this guy who said that TV was a vast wasteland.
Yeah, that was. I forgot about that guy. Yeah, that's right. That they named it after him. That's just really funny to me, but because I believe what Bill believes, which is it's amazing how educational television is today.
We are remembering Russell Johnson, the actor known to three generations of TV viewers as the professor on Gilligan's Island, along with Tony Figueroa, Donna Allen, Bill Funt, and Russell's daughter, Kimberly Johnson. To hear the rest of this conversation, go to shop.tvconfidential.net or the paid archive store at televisionconfidential.com. There you'll find more than 400 hours of interviews previously broadcast on TV Confidential, available as digital download. Shop.tvconfidential.net, televisionconfidential.com.
Are you tired of high cable TV rates? Sign up for Dish today and get a $500 bonus offer while supplies last. Plus, lock in your price for 2 years guaranteed. Call All American Dish, your Dish authorized retailer now.
800-296-1251. 800-296-1251. That's 800-296-1251. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.